Welcome to those of you who have joined today's webinar. I'm Maria Williams with the Collaborative on Health and the Environment. Che enjoys bringing you the latest environmental health science through our partnership calls and webinars, science serves, publications, and social media. I would like to welcome everyone to today's EDC Strategies Partnership Webinar, which is titled PFAS and Changes in Body Weight and Resting Metabolic Rate in Response to Weight Loss Diets. Our moderator today is Carol Kwiatkowski, Executive Director of the Endocrine Disruption Exchange. We will leave time following the presentation for a brief Q&A session. You may type in questions through the Q&A feature available on the menu bar at the top of your window at any point during the presentation. After the presentation, our moderator will read out questions for our speaker to respond to. We will get to as many comments and questions as we can during the Q&A period. For those of you who called in on the phone, we have posted slides to accompany today's webinar on our website. You can download these by going to healthandenvironment.org. Please scroll to the bottom of the page and select today's webinar. On the webinar page is a link to the slides. Everyone on the webinar right now is muted, with the exception of our moderator and our speaker. This webinar is scheduled to last for 30 minutes and is being recorded for our call and webinar archive. With that, I'll turn things over to you, Carol.
Thank you, Maria. I'm very happy today to introduce Dr. Chi Sun. He's an Associate Professor of Medicine at the Brigham and Women's Hospital and Harvard Medical School. He's also faculty at the Department of Nutrition at the Harvard School of Public Health, where he earned his Doctor of Science degree. His medical degree is from Beijing Medical University. Dr. Sun's research primarily focuses on understanding the role of diet and environmental pollutants in relation to diabetes, obesity, and cardiovascular disease. One of his major contributions links pollutants with weight gain and diabetes risk. Dr. Sun has published more than 150 articles in biomedical journals and has served as PI for multiple NIH research grants. Overall, his studies have filled several critical knowledge gaps. Dr. Sun's research is expanding to several new research frontiers, including using metabolomics and microbiome approaches to understand the health effects of environmental pollutants and diet. We're so happy to have you here with us today, Dr. Sun. Please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Carol, for the introduction. And I also want to thank Dr. Jerry Handel for inviting me to give this talk at CHE webinar. And unfortunately, he's sick today and couldn't join us. I also want to thank Maria Williams for coordinating the efforts so that this can happen. And it's a great honor to be here to give a talk at the webinar. I'm a long-term attendee of the CHE webinar. Have learned a lot over years regarding other people's research. And then it's my turn to share my recent findings. That we published the findings in last month, I think, at PLOS Medicine. So the title of my talk is PFAS and Changes in Body Weight and Resting Metabolic Rate in Response to Weight Loss Diets. And I'm faculty at Harvard Medical School and Harvard School of Public Health. Okay, I think to this audience, I will make this slide very brief. As we all know, PFAS, a group of compounds, share some common chemical structure in that all the hydrogen or some of the hydrogen atoms are replaced by fluorine atoms. So this chemical structure gives those chemicals a very unique feature in that they are both oil repellent and also water repellent. And such a feature makes them very useful in many industrial applications and also consumer products. For example, in the non-stick cookware, wall-to-wall carpet, and also outdoor clothing, and also food packaging. For example, the microwave popcorn bag, and also the paper cup that holds French fries, they contain PFAS. And through human studies, we know the rough estimated elimination half-lives is 3 to 8 years. That means those chemicals tend to stay in human body once you expose to those chemicals through multiple routes, primarily diet and drinking water, but of course through other potential pathways as well. So primarily in animal studies, but also in human in vivo and in vitro study, we know PFAS are potentially obesogens because we know PFAS can modulate PPAR alpha and PPAR gamma, they can also modulate the activities of hepatocyte, nuclear factor 4 alpha, PPAR and HNF 4 alpha. They are all transcriptional factors that can modulate lipid and glucose metabolism. In addition, new evidence suggests that PFAS can also modulate estrogen receptors. They can also interfere with estrogen metabolism. And lastly, we know that the PFAS potentially can also interfere with the functionality of thyroid hormones. Based on all those evidence, I think it's very reasonable to hypothesize that PFAS in humans may also modulate, interfere with human body regulation. But before I talk about human data, I think I just want to spend a minute on this study nicely done in a mouse model. This study quite unique in that it tested low-dose PFAS exposures during pregnancy of the mother mice and test the effects on mouse pups' body weight. So what this study showed is that in utero exposure to PFOA, which is one of the major PFAS, then didn't reduce the body weight to a certain extent, but didn't reach significant level. However, when they follow the mouse pups over time, they found that by midlife, which is age 35 to 40 weeks, the mice exposed to in utero low-dose PFOA showed increased body weight gain. However, despite those evidence from animal studies, in human studies, either transgenerational research testing mothers exposure to PFAS in relation to children's body weight, or in adults cross-sectional analysis regarding whether PFAS associated with body mass index or other anthropometric measures of obesity, the results are quite mixed. For example, in this enhanced analysis, they found that teenager boys exposed to PFAS actually associated with lower body mass index, whereas in older men, 60 to 80 years old, on the other hand, PFAS somewhat associated with increased body mass index. So of course, there are many reasons why the results are quite mixed. For example, animal study evidence may not be directly generalizable to humans for various reasons. However, we also think potentially we didn't ask the right question by looking at cross-sectional analysis in adults, looking at in study status whether PFAS are associated with faster weight gain over time among free-living individuals. So we think there could be other angles to really look at whether PFAS are associated with human obesity. So that angle is that field study, to our knowledge, no previous study have looked at whether pollutants can interfere with human efforts of losing weight. So the reason we want to look at from that angle is because in the current era of obesity epidemic, everybody on average is gaining weight. So there are more and more realization that excess body weight and obesity are very detrimental to human health, so that many individuals, including myself, try to lose weight. But our personal experience and also published data suggests that actually, we all know it's not challenging, it's not extremely hard to lose weight. Within like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, lose 10% body weight, 15% body weight, 20% body weight. You just eat less and move, do more physical activities. I think most of us can lose weight within them like 1 to 3 months, maybe 6 months. However, it is really challenging to maintain the weight loss. So just want to give you an example. This is a NBC TV show called The Biggest Loser. Basically, they enrolled 14 contestants, and they are all very heavy men and women. And they truly did a good job. I think we can call it individualized intervention for weight loss. And by 30 weeks, on average, they lose substantial amount of body weight. Then the TV show ended, and by 6 years, they also follow up those 14 individuals. And out of the 14 individuals, 13 of them regained the body weight. Actually, 4 individuals gained more weight so that they are heavier than they before they attended the competition. And just 1 individual actually maintained weight loss by 6 years. He or she lost more weight than at the 30 weeks. So this is really common phenomenon. This is just a good example to show that it's very challenging to maintain any weight loss. And one point is that, if you want to approach the association between pollutants and human body weight regulation through observational studies, it's gonna be very hard to evaluate the association in observational setting, because often in observational studies, you cannot separate intentional weight loss from unintentional weight loss. The unintentional weight loss always subject to reasons such as existing chronic diseases, so that the true associations may be distorted in such a setting. In that regard, weight loss trials are much better because we know what are the causes of weight loss, and that cause is very well defined and very clearly characterized, so that we all know this is unintentional. It is intentional weight loss, so that we tease out other causes of weight loss and make the examination of the associations of interest possible. Yes, very quickly, you may know this, that our body is engineered to fight against weight loss. So basically, this study published at New England Journal of Medicine demonstrates very nicely that after weight loss over time, the body is mobilized and many hormone levels are changing. The net result is that our appetite increased, our energy expenditure decreased, so that we tend to gain weight if we dare to lose weight. And here I want to introduce very relevant, very important concept is resting metabolic rate, which is a measurement of the rate at which body burns energy when we were at complete rest. So we also know that if we lose weight, the resting metabolic rate, in short, RMR, is suppressed. So that again, if we lose weight, for the same calorie intake, you have lower resting metabolic rate, then you save the energy, you convert them into adipose tissue, so that we observe during weight loss, the RMR levels on average in individuals are lower than before. So given those existing knowledge and biology that it's very challenging to lose weight, so you may ask, why do you still want to look at whether PFAS interfere with the efforts of weight loss or weight regain? It's because typically in weight loss trial, for individuals follow the same intervention with the same compliance, you always observe various apparent between individual variabilities in terms of how much they can lose weight, in terms of how much they can regain weight. So our hypothesis is that perhaps pollutants maybe explain the between individual variability in terms of their ability to lose weight and their potential of regaining the weight. So the trial we look at is the pounds loss trial, which is a 2-year randomized clinical trial. And they tested 4 different diets, and each diet emphasizes differential composition of macronutrients. We have high fat, low carb. We have high carb, low fat with different level of protein intake. And all 4 diets, they have 25% reduction of total energy, so people can lose weight. And the total sample size is 811 overweight and obese participants. So the main finding is that we observe in the first 6 months, all 4 diets have roughly the same weight loss, so there's no significant difference between the 4 diets in terms of how much weight they lose. And between 6 to 24 months, we call this weight regain months time period. And again, the 4 diets are not differential in terms of how much weight the individuals may regain. And just one sentence, it's very typical to observe in most of the clinical trial of weight loss. In the first 6 months, there will be a steady weight loss. But after 6 months, typically there's an upward trend regression to the baseline weight on average among individuals. So for our study hypothesis is that the higher PFAS levels are associated with slower weight loss. And second hypothesis is that higher PFAS levels are associated with faster weight regain. So our study design is that we only measured baseline blood levels of PFAS because we know PFAS tend to stay in human body for extended period of time. So that you just need to measure baseline that could be representative of long-term exposure anyway. And as I mentioned briefly, the first 6 months, we define those as weight loss period, and from 6 months to 24 months, we define this period as weight regain period. We also look at the changes in resting metabolic rate. And we use linear mixed effects model to evaluate the trajectory of weight loss, weight change during the course of the trial. So this is a baseline cross-sectional correlation coefficient between PFAS exposures and certain anthropometric measures, including body weight, body mass index, waist circumference, resting metabolic rate, and whole body fat. You know, I'm sorry for this busy slide, but my point is that if you look at the correlation coefficients, none of them is significant. None of them even, you know, at level 0.1. So this is very typically seen in other cross-sectional studies, including ENHANCE. If you look at cross-sectional correlation between PFAS levels with all anthropometric measures, you will observe no association whatsoever. We did observe some significant associations between PFAS levels with visceral fat mass, for example, diastolic blood pressure. But you know, if you look at the strength of the correlation, none of those correlations above 0.25. So take-home message for those slides is that, you know, cross-sectionally, you wouldn't observe very strong signals between PFAS and the anthropometric measurements. And our first hypothesis was actually rejected. If you look at this figure, which is for P4R, and from 0 months to 6 months, which is the weight loss period, there was no different trajectory by the tertiles of P4R levels at baseline. So regardless P4R levels, the weight loss is not differential, meaning that P4R or other PFAS was not associated with how much people can lose weight. However, when we look at weight regain, we found that P4R was associated with faster weight regain. The red line is for higher P4R levels. Their weight regain is faster than individuals with low P4R, which is the orange line. We found a similar pattern for PFAS as well, in that PFAS not predicting weight loss, but predicting faster weight regain. Then because we know that PFAS are potentially endocrine disrupting chemicals, so that we decided to divide the population by gender. And when we look at the data in men, we didn't observe very clear pattern that PFAS was associated with higher, faster weight regain. However, when we look at the women, it's very consistent that for all 5 PFAS, we observe that higher PFAS levels were associated with faster weight regain. And although some of the associations may not achieve statistical significance, but if you look at all 5 PFAS, the pattern is highly consistent. Then lastly, when we look at PFAS levels with resting metabolic rate, we also observe a clear pattern that higher PFAS levels always associated with lower resting metabolic rate. If you, for example, with the example of PFAS, the first panel in the upper left corner, the higher PFAS level is the red line, the RMR is more suppressed than individuals with lower PFAS exposure, which is the orange line. So although we look at associations in clinical trials, our study itself is not trial because we didn't randomize individuals by their PFAS exposure levels. Instead, this is still observational study. So we still have to think about alternative explanations. That first of all, maybe this is just chance finding. We need really other replication trials to examine whether they can observe roughly the same pattern of association. And one possibility is also confounding by an obesogenic habitual diet. That scenario is this, individuals may, tend to eat a lot of popcorn or French fries so that their exposure to PFAS are higher. And during the trial, they may relapse to their old diet that packed with, those kind of high energy food, but also contaminated by PFAS, so that you would observe, based on PFAS levels, predict faster weight gain. But when we to address this comment, we control for the craving, variables, assess in a questionnaire, assess craving for hamburgers, craving for French fries, craving for sugary beverages. After we control for those variables, the associations didn't change. And one thing to add is that we also know PFAS not only from popcorn or French fry, but also come from drinking water, seafood, so that those foods have nothing to do with diet quality. So I think it's fair to say it is still possible that the association may be confounded by, a habitual lousy diet, but it's hard to believe that the confounding can explain everything we observe here. I think I'm a little bit run out of time, so I'm gonna be very brief for this slide. For this slide, take-home message is that our study suggests that PFAS may contribute to obesity epidemic by promoting weight regain after intervention for weight loss. And we do need to know the mechanisms underlying our observations. And if anyone has access to trials, have existing biospecimen and willing to cooperate, please contact me. We are very happy to collaborate and replicate our findings in other trials. Conclusions in this diet-induced weight loss setting, high baseline PFAS predict more weight regain, especially in women, possibly explained by suppressed RMR levels associated with high PFAS levels. And the novel role of PFAS in weight regulation may help identify individuals that should be more responsive to weight loss diets. And I have many individuals to thank, but primarily I want to thank Gang Liu, who is in the middle, my postdoc, who led this analysis and contributed substantially to the project. And so many of you may know Philippe Ganjiang on the right, that he's a giant in the research of PFAS, and all the PFAS were measured in his lab. We have many exciting ongoing projects, and this study is supported by NIH grant. And thank you very much. I look forward to your comments and questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Sun.
Thank you.
That was very informative, very interesting research, and we have several questions. I'm going to try to put them together, maybe in categories as best I can. There are some questions about PFAS levels measured in humans and how they're measured in the blood and fat tissues, and also do your high, medium, and low levels in this sample of people that you measured, do they generally reflect levels that are found in the population?
Yes, Dr. Philippe Ganjiang's lab measured the PFAS levels based on MS-based method. The assessments accident assay is very reliable. We have good pilot data to suggest the quality of the assay is very good. And we have a lower coefficient of variation. In terms of levels, I don't have exact number in my brain, but we compared with enhanced exposure levels. They are quite comparable with enhanced. that for blood collected in roughly the same period of time.
Okay, great. And in terms of exposure, couple questions. Are PFAS absorbed from soaps and shampoos? Is there skin absorption pathway for exposure? Are exposure from cosmetics, etc., an issue in addition to drinking water contamination and fast food packaging, or is one more significant than another?
Yeah, based on the current evidence, in my study, I think conducted in Europe, suggests, the vast majority of PFAS could be just through diet and through other pathways, drinking water possible. And I think Philippe has some ongoing collaborations with researchers to test, also in the nurses' health study, to test whether drinking waters are also potential significant contributors to overall PFAS levels. But so far, the evidence is not as solid as dietary intake. So other pathways, for example, indoor air pollution through direct skin contact. I think those are very minor routes of exposure, and I would worry more about the PFAS exposure through diet. Having said this, I think there are new PFAS compounds released in the environment and used by industry, and we don't even know their existence unless you really use cutting-edge technology to quantify those new PFAS in water, in food, and how we were exposed to those new PFAS deserve more evaluation.
Okay. There was one question about getting the PowerPoint slides and the titles of studies cited. The PowerPoint slides will be, if they're not already, they're available on the CHE website. With the study citations in the slides, you should be able to probably Google those in PubMed and get the titles, I would imagine. And a couple more questions. Would you expect to see effects with in utero PFAS exposures, increased BMI throughout life, or more difficult to lose weight as adults?
That's a fairly important question. I think potentially possible, because if we know that PFAS can modulate DNA methylation and leave their footprint in human genome, then maybe human body was engineered toward that direction, that later on very hard to lose weight or maintain the weight loss. However, in reality, if you think about how to do the research, it's gonna be very challenging. That means you have to have their mother exposure and assessed and put those people on the weight loss trial and test whether they have hard time losing weight or hard time maintaining weight loss. I think it's a fair question to ask, although in reality it may be hard to examine, but you never know, maybe in the future this is a question that can be addressed.
Okay. And I believe one more. For people who are not too familiar with how RMR is measured, can you give a sense of the magnitude of the differences in RMR between the high, medium, and low PFAS groups?
Yeah, I think that's a fairly good question, very insightful. I need to do some calculations background, but at the moment it's hard for me to answer questions. But it should be highly consistent with the pattern we observed for weight change. Although out of my top of my head, I couldn't finish the calculation, but I can get this question answers back to you.
I think, yeah, I guess the person was just asking if there was a big difference between high, medium, and low, or if the difference is.
Oh yeah, it is. But it's fair to say, the pattern is more clear for certain PFAS, but not for others. I think for example, PFOS, PFAS, the pattern is really clear. We have very clear separation for the 3 lines, the high, medium, low in terms of our RMR changes. So definitely.
Okay. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. I'm going to ask, thank you, Dr. Sun. That was,
Thank you, Carol.
yes, it was wonderful. And I'm going to ask Maria to close out the call now for our listeners.
Okay, thank you, Carol. We are approaching the end of today's webinar. A video recording will be available on the CHE website soon, and tomorrow you'll receive an email containing a link to the recording. CHE's next partnership webinar will take place next Tuesday, April 24th, and is titled, Working with Communities to Strengthen the Public Health Fight for Environmental Justice. This is the 8th webinar in our series, 20 Pioneers Under 40 in Environmental Public Health. You can RSVP through CHE's website, healthandenvironment.org. CHE's next webinar from the CHE EDC Strategies Partnership will take place Wednesday, May 16th, and is titled, Does Early Bisphenol A Exposure Cause Hyperactivity in Children? A Systematic Review. Details will be available on our website soon. If you are new to CHE and would like to stay updated about upcoming events and more, please sign up to receive our newsletter by selecting the Join Us tab at the top of any page on our website. Additionally, if you appreciate these CHE partnership webinars, bringing you the latest environmental health research for free, we encourage you to support CHE's ongoing work by making a tax-deductible donation via our secure website. Again, our website is healthandenvironment.org. With that, I would like to thank Chi Sun for taking the time to talk with us today and Carol for her excellent moderation. Thank you so much for joining us and have a great day.